When it comes to choosing what games people add to their collection, there are many different variables such as difficulty, playtime, how expensive it is, but one of the major ones is replayability. Now, before, that wasn't really too big of an issue because it was just set up the game again. If you lost a Monopoly, start a new game of Monopoly. However, in recent times, games have added a new one playthrough sessions, and we're not simply meaning, oh, I played this game, I get how the game works. We're talking about things like Exit, Detective, or other mystery games or even legacy games where once you play through it once, you really can't go back through it. You sort of not just experienced it, but the mystery has been solved.
Right. Or in the case of Exit, you literally cannot play it again because the pieces are have been altered. So even if you wanted to play through it knowing the answers to the puzzles, you may not even have that choice. Same with some legacy games as well. Yeah, and this is something that has been becoming more of a trend in the last couple of years, and there's some hot debates out there. There's some controversy around it. Of course, these games, I think all the ones we've mentioned, most of the ones I can think of, are very popular. They sell very well, and they continue to make them. But there's definitely a contingent of people who are against the idea of these games because they want to be able to have something that they can play again and again and again for years to come. This is a different sort of thing, but I think it's also kind of related is sometimes games that use apps, as again, Detective Modern Crime board game does. People are concerned about those because the apps may not function after a certain period of time. And in general, they want these games to be able to last forever. That's really important to them. And I know for me, replayability has always been a really strong factor in what I would traditionally, I think, look for in games. You know, it's especially starting out in the hobby because starting out, you don't have that many games. And when you're looking for something new, you want to make sure you'll be able to bring it back to the table again and again for new experiences. But as time has gone on, I have softened on that a little bit, and I've come to really embrace some of these one-time game experiences. Where do you land on the spectrum, Will? I think you like them, but maybe you have a more nuanced opinion than that.
I do. I think part of the issue is pricings for some people. They'll look at this and in my mind, a lot of these like Sherlock Holmes Exit, yes, you destroy components in Legacy or Exit games, but a lot of them I would say akin to maybe a book or a movie. And for some people, are like, oh, I can buy a movie for like $20. I can't remember the last time I got a DVD or Blu-ray.
Yeah, something
And
like that.
not some crazy special collector's edition. And so they're like, that's how much a single view thing should cost. Now, people will argue that you can reread or rewatch those, and which I would argue the same thing for the board games. In fact, I have played through at times stories with a different group of people before, and I actually still found that fun. I think as long as the playthrough experience is still fun, I don't see the problem with it. I mean, that's the reason why people have replayed through something like Gloomhaven or bought the resets decks for, I don't know if Pandemic Legacy has one, but plenty of other legacy games have reset packs for their system so you can start from scratch.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit based on your personality and I think your perspective in where you are in the board game hobby too. Like price is obviously a big one, and I think again it comes down to for me, I'm not worried about having a game to play over and over again because I've got a pile of 100 of them. And if at this stage, you know, if we play a game 3 times independently without having to review it, that's a huge victory. So I think that's part of the reason I'm like, I've softened a little bit on that. I don't care as much about only playing something once or twice. Yeah, definitely sometimes they can give you new rewards on experiencing them again. I think that depends on the game. As far as the pricing is concerned, that's definitely something to take into account. I always liken it to seeing a movie in the theaters, where at this stage, well, you're not going to any movie theaters right now when we're recording this, but traditionally, depending on where you live, you might spend between 10 and 15 bucks plus whatever you're getting on concessions, etc., for just for one person to go to see a movie. And I've never heard anyone complain that after they leave a movie, they can't watch it again. And that's essentially what a one-time game is. But I think it's that different mindset. And a lot of gamers, I think, also come from a collector's mindset that they want something they can have on the shelf and they want to be secure in that purchase. And I certainly don't blame anyone for being wary about, especially in terms of price point. which is why I think something like Exit or Unlock, those are like $15 a pop. That's pretty great. A lot of times you can get them on sale or in a collector's pack. That's awesome. Some of these, the longer play ones, then you have to decide if that's worth it for you. Like Sherlock Holmes, for instance. Once you've played through them, you know all the answers, but there are a lot of cases in it. So how do you balance that out? Is it enough for you to have that one play session or not?
That's true. And obviously, like you said, different positions. We have way too many board games, so a single playthrough seems a lot more attractive. As you said early on, you really want to focus on something you can keep bringing to the table because it's like, look, I'm going to start with maybe one or two games in my collection. If I still like this hobby, have it grow. And, certain games, even not ignoring that fact, it's hard to justify some prices. Like going back to my movie thing, I can buy this movie for two movies for $20 or $20 each, or one game. Where like I've seen the Avengers before. I know how a Marvel movie feels. I've never played from this company before. It's much harder when you haven't gotten a feeling of what kind of games you like or what the companies bring to the table. And that's not including if you're sort of coming back or you're in already a money pit, something like a living card game or Magic where it just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going and going.
Yeah, yeah, and then going, I presume. Yeah,
Usually.
yeah, definitely. There's also a difference too. I think it's interesting to point out between, you're just talking about replaying games and something like Time Stories where there's a beginning and a middle and an end, but there's maybe some branching paths, or, depending on how your dice rolls turn out, you might see different things or have different challenges still, at least for a few playthroughs, versus again, like an escape room, which I think really is strictly all about you solve the puzzle, and usually you could wait like a year or so maybe until you've forgotten it.
That is true, but I will say, going back to the Time Stories example, the first time we played through it, just because our play group, we're the kind of people who want to search every nook and cranny, so we found most of the stuff. But playing with the second group, and yes, I knew the answer for most of the puzzles. It was fun more to just be there to be like, yeah, I'll help. I'll be the one who fights this. I'm more of. It was fun watching them experience it. It was almost being like the guy instead of for the escape room, maybe the one behind the camera, like who works there, instead of being the player. And it was just fun to see how they solve certain things and how quickly or not quickly they were able to tackle some of the problems that came up.
Kind of like the GM role a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that if you have different groups, that's definitely great. Or of course, for some of these games, if you can just give them on to new players, we've done that before. Once we're finished with something, that can be great. Or of course, like you said, the reset packs are good. I think another big block for some people is I think there's an unjustified, in my opinion, irrational idea that these games will kind of take over, that if legacy games and one-time play games become so popular, and app games, that every game's going to be like that, and that in the future everything's going to have a shelf life as opposed to the classic traditional games that can last forever and ever, theoretically. And I think the thing is, as we've seen, both live very much in harmony. In fact, if anything, it's those one-time play games that are the niche, that are a little more obscure, although they're getting more and more popular as time goes on. I don't think we're ever going to see one overtake the other. I think they both coexist.
I can't remember which convention it was, but I know someone brought it up asking about the replayability for Detective. And of course, Ignacy from Portal said, we're making it because people will buy it.
Right.
That said, though, I will say I'm on the side where I love apps. They do scare me. Because, yeah, I've seen times when there's a digital product or movie, TV show, whatever, and it can be pulled for whatever reason if it's only on digital, and then you're like, you don't have it. That said, though, there is the hope that I've seen plenty of, whether it be video game, board game, and if something gets lost or unable to be produced, someone has either copied it or fans make their own version. Yeah. I mean, I can't even remember what video game it was. They actually had their own servers for an MMO running.
Right.
Like that's crazy. So I think as long as you have passionate people who follow that too, it's not as much something you have to worry about. It's just then you have to worry if you're not in something that does have a big following.
That's all true. If you have a passionate enough a group, you might even get for some of these games fan-made scenarios that could help
That is true.
extend the life too.
I mean, look at Mansions of Madness. They have the whole Valkyrie system.
Right. So my recommendation for people who are on the fence would be to, if you have the money, of course, if it's not an issue of finances and you're okay just paying for these games, sometimes it's okay to just live in the moment and enjoy an event and enjoy the memory of it. And sometimes I think that's makes it even more special than something that you can come back to over and over again, is when it's more fleeting like that. Just, it's you sort of got to have a Zen attitude about it. Something is precious and fleeting as it is.
My recommendation is to be a little bit lazier. Do what you want. The games you like will not disappear. I don't think these will either, because I do think that they are popular enough. I just do spend the money how you want. The only way that the games you like will disappear is if you don't spend money on them. Game publishers will make games if people buy them.
Yeah, I think that's true. I believe that's an accurate statement. There's a lot to discuss here. Let us know down below, what types of one-time or limited time experiences do you like? How much does that factor into your decision on what game to purchase? Is that a big deal? If you only get 10 or 15 sessions versus potentially unlimited, or do you love buying up the new exit games every month and just playing those one time each? Let us know in that comment section. We'd love to hear about it, because I'm sure there are a lot of different thoughts people have about this.
Until then, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
And this has been Roll for Crit.
We would love it if you liked and subscribed to this channel and supported us on Patreon as well.
For legal reasons, we've got to disclose we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter with more awesome content.